Hello everybody, this is Kay and welcome to my channel, Gigi's Paper Treasures. This is part 2 of the making of a journal in a box, which this is the box. I made this in a separate video and I will link that below if you want to go watch how I did this. Now I didn't make the box, but I kind of redid it. This was originally a Blink video doorbell box that we had gotten for our home, and I took the box and I kind of covered some things up, and I put a little ribbon in here for a lift for the journal that I'm going to make to go in here today, and I did a magnetic closure. But today I'm going to focus on making a journal to go inside this box. So the first thing I want to do is, this was also part of the box. There was a box inside this box that contained the doorbell thing, and this was on the top like this. So I want to use this for my cover of my journal somehow. But it's got these edges on here, and what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to make the journal a little smaller so that it sets down in there nicely and not too tightly. So the first thing I'm going to do with this piece is I'm going to take it and I'm going to trim it down just inside these crease lines. My thinking for this piece is that I'm going to make a little window. I'm going to put some plastic, some acetate or something behind here, and put some type of an image behind there for the front cover of my journal. But I haven't decided exactly what yet. This is what I have so far. And I'm going to grab my box real quick and just make sure that it's going to fit in there with a little bit of give on all the edges, and I think it does. So if I keep everything to these specifications, the journal should actually drop right down in there easily. So I'm going to measure this out, and it looks like I have 3 1/8 by 6 1/8. So I'm going to grab some more cardboard here, and these are just some scraps of mailing envelope cardboard that are pretty durable. I think they'll be fine for a small journal like this. And I'm going to cut these down now. Actually, I may just use this as my guide and grab a pencil and mark around it to cut out a piece for my back cover. And then I'm going to need a spine piece as well. I'm going to figure out how wide in a second that I need that spine piece. And actually, I guess I'm going to need 2 this size, because I need one as a backing piece for my cover and then another one for the back cover. So I'm going to do that again real quick here. Grab another piece of my cardboard and just trace this out and cut another one of those sized pieces. So I've got those 2 pieces. One will be my front cover and my back cover. Now I need to figure out how deep I need to make my spine. So I need my box here. And I'm not going to make it flush with the top. I'm going to have it, I'm going to leave a little bit of an edge just in case I do something kind of more three-dimensional on the top, like add some beads or something to the, I don't know. I feel like I want to leave a little bit of an edge just in case I have something on the top of my journal that would take up some space. So let's see, this is 2 1/4. So I think I'm going to make my spine 1 7/8 wide. I know that I need it to be the same height as this, which is 6 1/8, and then 1 7/8. So I'm going to grab another piece of my cardboard here. Let me see how. Okay, so I should be able to get that piece out of this little strip right here. I'm just going to use one of my covers as kind of my guide and push it all the way up against the edge there. So that's going to be my height, and I can use that as my guide to cut that. And then I will trim, oops, moved. Well, so I have a line there. I can just do like that and finish cutting through it. Okay, so that's 6 1/8. Let me just double check that. Where'd my ruler go? Should be 6 1/8. It is. And I need 1 7/8 this way. So I think I'll just use the lines on my mat, little mat here, and line it up all the way to the 0. And so 1 7/8 is going to be that mark right there. So I'm actually going to cut a little bit more off of the width of this, because I forgot to take into consideration that when I put my covers on, I'm going to have a little bit more of a gap here. It's going to be a little bit wider because I'm going to leave a little gap between the covers to allow for that flexibility, and that will make the whole book a little bit wider. So I'm going to grab my cutting board back again, and I think I'm just going to take off another 1/4 of an inch, maybe not quite that much. Okay, so here are my 3 pieces, and I'm ready to cover the outsides. I think I'll make, it really doesn't matter what is the inside or the outside, because they're all going to get covered. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the lines on my mat here and get these lined up, and I'm going to kind of hold them in place temporarily with some little pieces of washi tape. This is just some washi tape that I don't really care for, so I kind of use it whenever I just need a little bit of temporary holding. So I'm just going to line these up. They slide around real easily on this glass cutting board, so on this glass mat, whatever you call it. So I'm going to hold them in place with washi tape, and I'm going to leave just a little gap between each one to allow for that flexibility of opening and closing the covers. For the outside, I'm going to use this piece of fabric, and it's a black, but it's not a solid black. It's kind of a black and gray, kind of a mottled looking pattern on there. I'm going to use this piece of fabric, which just happens to be the perfect size. It fits on here with a little bit overhanging. I'm going to use my PVA glue, or I guess it's PVA glue. No, it's actually, oops, I gotta dry section there. It's actually my Aleene's tacky glue, but I've got it watered down, so I'm going to just mix it up a little bit, and I'm going to use this to apply on here and glue down my fabric. So I'm going to start with the spine here, and I'm actually just going to put some glue. I'm not going to cover up my washi tape because I want to remove that at some point. So I'm just going to start with like the middle part of my spine to get my fabric positioned on there. Making sure I have some hanging over all the edges, and I can kind of feel the edges of my cardboard so I can get it on there kind of even with a little hanging over the edge. And that wrinkle should smooth out as I glue it down. Wrinkles usually do. I don't worry about ironing my fabric when I'm using them to make a cover like this because the wrinkles iron out. And then I'm going to go on to this section on this would be the front cover. Add some glue. And one nice thing about this glass top is that it cleans off real well. My pink cutting mat that I work on a lot is great for cutting, but it's getting pretty nasty with like glue on it that I didn't clean up fast enough, and ink stains and stuff like that. Okay, and now I'm going to do this side. There was a little wrinkle in the address label that was still on that packaging, but I think I got it kind of smushed down with my fingernail. So now that I have those all connected with the fabric, I can take my washi tapes off, and I'm just going to take them off of this end and finish gluing down this end of the fabric. Alright, I'm going to miter these corners a little bit and leave a little bit of gap at the corner for folding over and making that nice clean looking corner. And then glue these down. I usually start with the long edges and then do the short edges, and then I'll work on putting on my inside panels. I was kind of having to fight my fabric on this one end because it kept wanting to curl under, and my corners aren't looking as great as I think when I was mitering my corners, I didn't leave enough of a gap to fold over. I got in too big of a hurry or something. I mean, they don't look bad, and I can always trim that off a little bit. See, that one's got like a little bit of hairiness hanging off. I'm just gonna trim that. It's not too bad. But before I put the inside pieces on, I'm just curious. I'm gonna grab my box here, make sure I'm not setting it down in any wet glue, and just kind of gauge if it's gonna be a good fit. And I think so. I mean, it didn't fall in there. Oops, I forgot to do my ribbon so the ribbon should come out on this end. It didn't fall in there. I did have to push it down a little bit, but I think it's gonna be a pretty good fit. So, okay, so let me take that out and do something on the inside. Now on the inside here, I'm gonna do some scrapbook paper, and this came out of the same pad of paper that I got this from. Let me grab it here real quick, just in case you didn't watch the first video. It's the Moody Florals from Hobby Lobby, the paper studio. It is cardstock. It's not a super heavy cardstock, but it is cardstock. And I chose this because it's kind of plain, but it coordinates really nicely with the fabric, or the paper, the greens in the other paper that I chose. So I'm going to use this for the inside of the journal. So I'm going to leave just a slight edge on that side, and on this side put a pencil mark. I hope I can see it on this dark. Put it there so I can see it when I bring it to my trimmer. So let me grab my trimmer and trim it to that point for the width. All right, I forgot to turn my camera back on for the second cut, but I've got it cut down so there's just a little bit of a border going around all the edges. But before I glue this piece down, I'm gonna take my Scorch Timber Distress ink, which is what I used on the other pieces of the paper that I covered the box with. It's a very, very dark, I feel like it's black, but I guess it's really supposed to be a dark brown, but that's what I'm going to use for this project, just to kind of get rid of that white edge before I glue this down. All right, so I've got that all glued down. I'm gonna go place this under some heavy books for a while to let that glue get good and dry before I go on with the rest of this journal. I did have to go back in and put a little bit of more glue around the edges, but I think it's all good and glued down now. So I'm gonna start working on the papers for the signature while I'm letting this dry for a while. And also, while I'm letting that cover dry, I thought I'd figure out what I want to do with this. And so what I've gathered here, first of all, is kind of a cream colored background, and this plastic is a piece of transparency film. So I want to make a window there, and that's going to be behind it. And then I found this little pack. I've had this for a while. of dried pink and kind of purplish dried flowers that I thought went really well with the colors in the paper that I chose to cover the box with. So I'm going to open this up, and I'm going to, I think what I'm going to have to do is like draw a little pencil line around my piece of cream textured cardstock here, so I know to stay within the pencil line when I'm arranging my little dried flowers. So I'm just going to do a real light pencil line, and I can go back in and erase that later. So I have that. I'm going to set my plastic aside for now. I'm going to cut this package open. I think it's like vacuum packed, and I don't, honestly, I don't remember where I got this from. I apologize. I'm really bad about getting stuff and then forgetting where I got it from and passing that information on, but it's a really pretty little pack, and it actually might have come from Temu, but I don't remember for sure. But it's got just a really pretty little variety of dried flowers, and I'm gonna grab my tweezers because I suspect they're rather fragile. And I'm just going to kind of spend a few minutes making a bit of an arrangement on my card here with some of these. Alright, so this is what I've come up with. I just kind of clustered all some of the smaller flowers up and down here, and now I have to glue these down very carefully. I'm just gonna use little dots of my art glitter glue and try and get these glued down. They are going to be sandwiched in between the plastic and that card, so that also will help hold them in place. I'm just going to lift one flower up at a time and kind of put some dots and lay them back down, and this might take a while. I may speed this up, or I may just pause my camera and see I already dropped some, but I'm going to go ahead and put a few dots and lay that back down. And just kind of work my way down here. So this one's next. And I should have done this first actually, because it was underneath that one, but it's not going to be anymore. I'm going to put it on top. So, all right, that was pretty painstaking, but I got it done. Covered up, so that's what that's going to look like. Of course, I'll have the plastic in there. So what I have to do now is take my eraser, and I'm going to go through and I'm going to erase as much of the pencil mark as I can get to. First of all, I want to trim off a couple of these stems. They're not gonna show, but just to kind of get them out of the way. And then just do my best to erase my pencil marks. Gone. There. And I'm going to add a couple more dots of glue just under those petals. Alright, so I got most of my marks erased. I don't think it's going to really be that big of a deal. Like, I couldn't quite get all that. And it was a little bit smudgy, but I got most of it. It's not really going to show. Once I get this put in here, it's going to be, you're not going to be able to see that anyway. So my next step now is I'm going to cut down my piece of plastic here. Cut it about right here. I picked up this package of this transparency film at a thrift store for like super cheap, and it's full. It's got like 20 pieces of this plastic in it, and I thought, what a great deal. You know, I do a lot of thrifting and yard sailing and flea market stuff to find my supplies for this craft that I'm obsessed with. So All right, so I'm going to glue this to the window, and then we're going to glue that and take it from there. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put glue around the window, but not right up to the edge because I don't want it like seeping over the edge. So I'm going to put it around, leaving about 1/4 of an inch margin or so. And then I'm going to do the same on my plastic. I'm going to take it just around the outer edge. I hope I'm in frame. I'm sitting down, so I can't really tell if I'm in frame, so hopefully I am. Okay, and just glue that down to make my window, and I can slide a little. With the art glitter glue, you have a few seconds of maneuvering time, and I'm just gonna kind of push it out so that if the glue spreads, which as you can see it is spreading some, it spreads away from the window so it won't show. It won't spill into the viewing area. I don't know if that's a good way to call it, but there's our window, okay? And now I need to get this, I think, was that my top or was that my top? I don't know if it really matters. So I'm gonna position that in there, flip it over. It's a little crooked, but actually I'm gonna trim this down just a hair on the top so that nothing is hanging over the edge. All right, let me do that again. Get that in there, flip it over, and then I'm just gonna lift up on the ends of this and put glue on the edges of this, trying not to get it into the viewing area as well. Flip this over while its glue's still wet and make sure I have that in a good spot. Looks good. Okay, and now I'm going to do this side. I hope you can see this. If you can't see real well, I'm sure it's obvious what I'm doing. I didn't want to glue the whole thing down until I had my positioning right. And there we have that for our front cover. I'm gonna put this, I'm just gonna stick this under a book for a minute or under my mat over here to let that get good and dry. I wanted to show you that I did start on working on my signature pages. So I figured out that my pages, because I wanted them to be kind of the same height, but just a smidge shorter this way, needed to be 6 1/4. My pages that I cut needed to be 6 1/4 by 6, so they're 6 inches tall, and then I folded them in half, so they're about 3 6 1/4 folded in half, so they're about 3 1/8 inch wide. So what I've got here, and I need to make some more, but I've been trying to use up a bunch of pages out of a magazine, and that's what all of these are. These are all out of this magazine, which I've had for a while, and I don't know if any of you have ever heard of this, Somerset Studio magazine, but it's a beautiful magazine. This was from about a year ago. This is the May, June, July 2024 issue. And so I've taken a bunch of pages out of that for this project, as well as a few other projects, and made kind of colorful, and there's some neutral in there as well. Pages for this journal. I also got some music pages. I have a few pages from an old vintage book. That's just a start of the pages I'm going to be putting together for this journal in a box journal. And they are kind of an odd size, being 6 1/4 by 6. So I'm having to cut down like each individual page. And these are all kind of pattern pages, but I also want to use some plain coffee dyed papers and maybe some other papers for this as well. So that's just the start of the pages that I'm gathering for this journal. When I first started this project, I was thinking about putting my signatures in using the wrapped spine binding method. I've been doing that lately, and I actually have a tutorial on that binding method. But I think I've changed my mind, because when I look at this, and I have all my papers for my signatures cut here, and I want to do 4 signatures. But when I kind of put this together and put it in here, it's a little bit snug. I mean, it's not hard and tight to go in, but I don't think that I can put anything on the outside of the spine. I think if I did a binding where I have my strings on the outside of the spine, that's going to make it too tight of a fit. So, that being said, what I've decided to do is I'm going to do kind of a hidden spine. So I've cut another piece of cardboard here, and I'm going to cover it in this same paper. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to punch 4 holes in the ends and probably put eyelets in them, and then use the elastic cord to slip my pages in and out. And that way it'll be a hidden spine, and it won't add any more depth to the width of the journal, making it too tight to fit into the box. So I've got that, and I'm also going to have to trim down all my papers, because I cut them to 6, which is the height of the cover, and I'm going to have to probably cut them down to about 5 1/2, and I'll do that off camera. I should have thought this through, and I didn't, but now I'm figuring it out as I go, and often that's what I do on these. So I'm going to get some more of this paper and cover this to match up with the inside of my cover. There's that, and I took a little scrap of paper to make my kind of a little template for my holes, and I'm gonna be honest with y'all, I just eyeballed it. I didn't measure, and I just punched those holes. So what I'm gonna do here is line that up with the end of each end of my spine piece, and I hope I'm gonna put a little, I hope I can see these little circles on this dark paper with this dark pen. Yeah, I can see them. And I have my little crocodile tool out here. I'm using the smaller hole. Something stuck in there. And I've got this thing, this is the stop set to where I need it. So I just need to hold it, and sometimes I have a hard time seeing the hole through the, hold it under my light a little better. There we go. I know I'm not in frame, but I had to get it under the light because I just couldn't see it. Anyway, there's that one, and I'm going to punch all these holes. Those punched, and I got my gold eyelets out. These are the small ones, by the way. I don't know if I mentioned that before, the 1/8 inch ones. And these are a little thicker. Since this is thicker, it's a little bit tougher getting it through the holes sometimes. But I'm just going to put those in there, and I got my crocodile set to the right sides, and I'm just gonna apply these to each one of these holes. Obviously, I'm using gold to stick with my whole gold, black and gold, and kind of, got my finger, my skin under that one. Okay, that one looks really uneven. I must have been a little bit off when I punched the hole, but I'm hoping that once I get the stretchy string cord in here and get my signatures in, maybe that won't be that noticeable. So let me finish up with these other 4 now. So now I'm going to feed this is my 1mm, my giant spool of 1mm black stretchy cord. And I'm going to add this to each one of these. Now, I'm gonna try not to waste too much of it, but I do need to leave myself enough to just be able to tie it. And I don't like to stretch it real tight. I'm going to try not to stretch it real tight, but a little bit snug. So I'm going to do a square knot. I'm going to go left over right. I'm going to pull it just a little bit. Got my fingernail on it so that it's taut but not tight. Oop, came undone. And do all 4 of these that way. Okay, I'm struggling with this, so I'm going to get one of my little clips here, and I'm going to put that on here to hold it while I make my second tie. I put that clip on there, and then when I get my second tie in, I can take it off and tighten my knot. And that's taut but not tight. So I'm going to do all 4 of those like that. And then once I have it where I want it, I pull these real tight. I try not to pull these too tight, real tight until I have it how I want it, because once you get this pulled tight, it's almost impossible to get that knot undone. So, and then I'm going to cut these kind of short. This part will be glued down behind, you know, this is going to be glued down like this anyway, so that part won't show, but I don't want any of the strings sticking out. So I'm going to do all the rest of these in the same manner. All right, got those all on there. I can see they're not perfectly even. There's I got that one off a little bit. I mean, they don't look too crooked. There's a little bit more space in the middle here between these 2, but you know what? It's good enough, and I think that once I get the signatures in there, the pages and everything, it's gonna all be just. I'm just gonna add my Fabri-Tac to the in-between spaces and put some on the cords themselves, and then also go around the outside edge, trying to avoid getting it in the right on those holes. But I mean, if I do and some oozes out, I can clean that up real quick, but I'm going to try and avoid that. I'm going to go place this under something heavy for a while and let that Fabri-Tac dry real good before I start putting anything in here. Also, while I'm letting that dry, I have to trim all of my papers down because they need to be 5.5, not 6 anymore, to fit under the band. So I'm going to do that off camera. All right, I got all of these cut down. And now I'm just going to assemble them into the signature. So I'm going to try and put like the same amount of magazine pages, music pages, vintage book page, and the other papers, you know, in each signature. So I'm just going to separate out the different kinds of papers I have here and get my 4 signatures put together. I've got my 4 signatures assembled. I may end up having to do a little bit of trimming on these edges. I'm going to wait and see once the cover, that spine piece is good and dry, and I put these in there. If any of this is sticking out, I might have to trim it, but we'll see once that's dry and I can pop these in there. Alrighty, I've got my cover here and I've got my signatures, and I'm going to slip these in here and see what we've got. So yeah, I can see here that I'm going to have to do some trimming. So that looks a lot nicer. That's even with the edge of the book now. Now I have to put the topper on and we'll be done. So I'm just going to open this up like this. Actually, let me see. I should have put this on. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to slip the signatures back out again because that's easy to do. And put my topper on. And then put my signatures back in. So there we have it. I'm not sure if I'm going to add anything more to the cover or not. I haven't decided. But here's our little journal. And I'm going to do a little bit of embellishing probably on the inside of it. Oh, that's not sticking very good. I still have some room. You see how that kind of, I can add some stuff to this without it bulking it up too much more. I'm going to see how it works in my box. So to put it in the box, the ribbon needs to come across like this. You just drop it down in there. It is a little snug top to bottom, but it fits in there pretty nicely. And you can see how that side goes down. That's why I'm saying I have room for embellishment. And then I am going to go ahead and trim off my ribbon. I'm going to leave about 1 inch over here maybe a little bit more than an inch for the pull. And I'm going to try and cut it so it looks kind of like a banner end. So there we have that. And then that won't be in the way of the magnetic closure. So there's that. You open it up. You lift up your ribbon. You do kind of have to hold the box down to get your book out. So that is all I have for this video today. Thank you so much for watching. If I do decide to do some more embellishing on the cover, I will definitely insert a picture of that at the end of this video. But I'm just not sure yet if I'm going to do that. We'll be putting this up on my Etsy shop. So keep an eye out for that one. And thank you so much for watching. God bless.